I'll cut that part out.
Yeah, just a referral.
Are you familiar with the term Columbus style pizza? So Columbus style pizza is edge to edge.
You can do that and then just
It's like
escape.
Okay,
and
I like
keyword
that.
this.
I like that.
And
The other two.
Yeah.
Right, that means it's.
Yeah, it's,
Yeah. So like, Tommy's.
Tommy's is
delicious.
So
You
it's
can
like
use
generationally.
This if you want to, or the keyboard or the mouse. This
What
will
is
like
the
click
new
on
pizza
next.
place from
I want to write on the
Studio
board too.
Five?
Do I get
Oh,
a,
it's real fancy. It's
do I get a
fancy.
real thing like a pointer or?
I really like to eat. I'm like,
I love
really
that.
eating.
That was my try.
I'm a very joyful eater.
I don't, if you focus on your physical area, because I heard you say.
This is a pointer.
Yes, I do.
I don't
prefer, I'm
really
moving to
like
Westerville,
Oh,
like today.
It won't work on the TV.
And,
We'll work on the wall.
but I also really like.
Are we
like,
ever gonna
Studio
take the old
35
stuff
now,
down?
but like, I know.
Yeah.
that,
The
like,
local.
Oh,
you
yeah,
know,
leave that
and
up
I
for March.
really, like, we had
I'm
such
just
a
gonna
rough
wait.
time. You know,
No, we gotta decorate for the office
go
meeting.
there. I don't know the owner
take it down
of
tonight.
but I do vouch that
Alright.
it was.
I have to put it up, apparently I have to take it down, so.
Oh,
I don't know the short north, I just don't.
But call
I'm bored
ahead
now.
because
Like everybody else in this country. They, no, they don't have people that sometimes they can see. Last time they were taking friends from the town. We drove all the way down there. And when we got
I was
there,
so in love
we
with
had
it.
people meet back at the house.
Just a month
They
ago.
couldn't
my
even
dad
get
was
us the pizza for an hour.
We were already certified,
Just,
but.
you know, for catering.
So
You
within
have to
that
call,
month,
make sure, make sure that
I-
open. So you can eat there. It's a
I
great.
have a 5-year-old daughter as well. Totally changed it. I grew up in I did leave Ohio for about 10 years, but I lived on the highway. I feel like
Like a no safe.
so it's just kind of cracking me up to get.
But if you haven't had any- if you haven't had any-
But I was super close, we're up.
That is the,
So you wanna, once it's started.
Yeah, so, yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Is that the, that's the,
I printed my own out, but I don't know.
that's not, that's the, their side.
No, they get more tests.
I need my perfect.
the office. We're all gonna get sick.
I told Josh, I was like, if healthcare workers can go to work and be COVID positive, I'm not doing that now. It's so further considered. I mean, it's your choice. We're not saying anything to you. Yeah, I'm done. I that was from the get-go. You chose not to wear one. Because I mean, none of us did pay shopping. Yeah. If you can make it a business decision to require vaccine, you can make it a business decision.
I'm excited for your pizza journey. Because, you know, there's a Facebook group called Columbus Pizza Connoisseur. And they're always posting.
Make everybody get up.
You want to
Yeah, this is
make them eat. Very much.
Where do you live? Oh, you do?
All right, guys, we're gonna get started. Class has started. I have to be done and home by 3. So, I am Lisa Gibbs, and I have been selling real estate in the Columbus area since 2002 or 3, somewhere in that area. Anyways, I worked on a very large team called the Reigns Group at HER. And I started off as buyer's agent and then moved from there to listing partner and or both. I probably got about 500 transactions under my belt. After you see enough of them, you don't really count them anymore. So what I want to do is I want to find out from you guys who you are, how long you've been in the business, or if you're brand new. And I would really love it if you all got up and moved up front, because I don't like, I'm gonna walk the room and hopefully won't spit on you. So I'm COVID free. Anyway, so who are you?
My name is Max. I got licensed in October, so still brand new.
Okay, cool. And what industry were you in before?
Predominantly construction.
Okay, so you have a good understanding of building and all that good stuff?
Yeah.
Good, all right. That's a huge skill that you need to promote with your buyers. Stacy.
Stacy Dixon, I'm new, very new, and stayed home with my kids for 20-some years. Had some investment properties and campus properties, and did advertising sales before, so.
Okay, cool, welcome.
Thank you.
Bill?
Bill Benninghoffen, I knew also.
No, you're
32
not.
years. And I've been in Keller Williams for a little over 3 years now, the second time around. And happy to be learning new things.
Okay, cool.
And stop learning.
Greg Cunningham, been licensed for 13 years, selling for 10. Started at HER, went to Consultants, and now here, so.
Okay, cool, welcome. John?
John Colette. This is my 4th year in the industry. My 2nd year, I started in 3rd year full-time. I started with HER as well. And then I've been Cat Partners for 5 months now.
Okay, welcome. And you are?
I am Bonnie Bozart Roberts, and I have been a licensed agent for 1 month and 2 days now.
Wow,
So
okay.
just started, was in commercial real estate before that on the investment side. And so I'm learning a whole new part of the real estate business.
Okay, great.
I'm Francie Wooster. I have been licensed for 4 months, but I like to say that I'm brand new. So a lot of life stuff happened in those 4 months. So I'm really hitting it in 2022. I am really, really interested in being a buyer's agent. I'm really passionate about first-time home ownership and creating generational wealth. So I'm super excited
Okay,
about
well,
what you
good.
got.
Well, I'm sort of taking over for Jeff, so I'm not prepared for any of this, but what I want to do is I want to find out from you guys what you think your value is when you come to the table for these buyers. What are you going to bring to the table for them, and what's going to secure in your mind why they should use a buyer's agent and why they should use you? You be perfect for new construction, and that's something you need to present to your buyers. So if we can just go around and just speak up as to what value you're going to bring to a buyer when you're sitting down with them at that consultation and talking to them about, why they should use you. Go ahead.
I have been to I shadowed one buyer's consultation, and what I found was they were really anxious about the market. So kind of being a calming source, a confident source, kind of addressing their anxiety and helping them feel better about the market.
I don't know what you call it. All right. I just wanted right on the board. Okay. Anybody else?
I think kind of said Stacy, right?
Francie.
That's so far off. I'm
No,
sorry.
she's Stacy, I'm
You're
Francie.
Oh my
We're
God.
twins.
The kind of back up what you said, so my background, I used to be a pastor,
Okay.
and being a counselor to especially first time buyers, it's scary. So I'd definitely second the comment she said.
Okay. Anybody else?
We offer protection to the buyers, like a lawyer, how they represent people.
Okay. Good one.
I think experience of buying and selling yourself, what they typically are stressing out about or questioning.
And there's not just one house for them. There are lots of houses for them. And if they miss one, there'll be another one that comes along,
Right.
especially in this area, because so many houses
Right.
being built are built by a limited number of builders. So there's always going to be something that will fulfill their needs. So don't worry about missing one opportunity because another one will come.
Okay.
Would you say a buyer's consultation would be information gathering, really like getting to know them and what they're looking for?
Right. Exactly.
We bring
Experience.
experience.
Experience, yep. Bring experience. You're going to help them kind of make a big financial decision in their life, because this is, for most people, is one of the biggest financial investments. So you want to make sure that they are educated enough. You're basically a teacher as to teaching them how to purchase a house. So with that said, we're going to kind of like get into the meat of this, because so getting buyers is probably the easiest thing to do right now, because the market is so inundated with buyers. It's just finding them the right house and getting them into contract and then keeping them into contract. So the way I like to work is when I meet with somebody, or especially like a referral, especially with a first-time home buyer, I like to know how many houses they bought and sold in their life, because that'll change the way I do my buyer's presentation. So if it's a first-time buyer, what I'd like to say is, this is how I work. So let's get you into the office. Let's sit down and talk about, you know, the whole process and how to do it and how to purchase a house from start to finish, which means going over contracts and everything else. If I take a Zillow call, and I'll be 100% honest, I don't play by those same rules, because a Zillow buyer is a totally different animal. I'm gonna get an appointment with them to show them the house. And then from there, I'll do some pre-qualifying while I'm in that house with them. If I meet somebody at an open house, it's going to be, let's come in, let's sit down, let's talk, let's figure out what you're looking for. And that's kind of the way I've been doing, you know, the online leads. And I'm sure, John, that's probably the way you do it too. Yes, no.
Well, yeah, with online leads, you have to, they want to see the house now.
Mm-hmm. So the biggest thing about a buyer consult is it's going to save you time, and it's going to save a lot of headaches. And it will probably make your transaction go a lot smoother if you can discuss with them what's going on up front. The first part of my presentation is questions. I want to know as much about them as possible, because I also want to know if they've been pre-approved and who they've been pre-approved with, because some lenders, as we know, are better than others. And if somebody comes in and says, well, I've got my pre-approval with Quicken Loans, I'm probably going to give them a few other lenders just to make sure that we've got a backup plan, because Quicken Loans sometimes can approve them for a lot higher than what they're really approved for or what they really want to spend. And they're also somewhat challenging, and I hope nobody's a big fan of Quicken Loans or works for them. You're laughing back there, Jeff. Okay.
They brought us lunch, right?
No, that was Goosehead. That's the insurance. And speaking of that clue report, I always ask for that. I make sure when they are doing their inspections, that's the time to get their clue report. That's the time to put their homeowner's insurance in place, because if you find something, you would have an out at that point. And some insurance companies, you can call and get it, but the buyer needs to call and ask for that clue report, because I've had buyers come back to me and say, hey, guess what I just found out? And I say, hey, that's why I asked you in my little template form, ask for the clue report when you're doing your insurance initiation, and they should always do it during that inspection period because they can walk. Yes, Francis?
I just have a clarifying question. So the clue report is not something we would say, here, buyers, I got this info for you. That is,
You could, obviously, they're offering it.
okay,
That's a whole new idea that I never even thought of presenting
Okay.
to a buyer. So if you're up against 3 different houses, and, I mean, there's been situations where, you know, somebody had a roof replaced and didn't have the roof replaced, they had the roof fixed. And, you know, you're stuck with egg on your face, and it can get really ugly at that
Okay.
point. So it's always best to ask. Yes, Bill.
In your inspection contingency in the contract too, it's got insurability as part of that language. So if your buyer had 10 days to do their inspections, they've got 10 days to find this clue report. They can't come back 3 days before the closing and say, hey, we can't get insurance because of this. They wouldn't get their deposit back at that point, or shouldn't.
Right, that's a Lori question. That is way above my pay grade. I know, I mean, that's an attorney question. That's when you know, that's why that's so important. And now we're waiving inspections. And unless you're really good with your buyer knowing how to do that stuff, I would never waive inspections. I would never waive inspections for a first-time home buyer,
Yeah.
ever.
Well, I think we move around it, because if they can't insure it, they can't finance it. They can't finance it.
That would be their way out.
But I'm not a lawyer.
we, I just personally bought a house last week, and we did not waive the inspection, but we waived any remedies.
That's-
Yeah, that's
for it.
That's different because you still have that opportunity to walk away. even
Yeah.
if You don't. So after I sit and talk with my buyers, I tell them, once we are done with all this, we are gonna be committed to working together. And that's kind of like a little soft close. The next thing I do after I ask them exactly where they want to live and you know, what type of things they're looking for in their next house. I will go to the MLS while I'm sitting there with them. And you guys know how to search, but the new people, do you know how to search the MLS and kind of find and save searches for your clients? Sort of, no? Okay. So the way I like to do it is I put my little top things up here that I want to see. And you can highlight that by these. You just highlight them in here and then you put them on the menu bar. And that way you can.
There, right? You're in command.
I
versus the
no, this is in the MLS.
The
This
MLS,
is
okay.
the board, the multiple listing service. And that's my next phase. After I ask them what they're looking for, I want to know things like how many kids they have, what school district they want to be in, or school districts. Some people may say to me, I don't need HOAs. I don't want to pay any HOAs. Or I want HOAs that are below $100, or I need taxes that are this price. And you can search by all of that once you drill down and narrow in what they're looking for. I also ask them what their lifestyle is like, because I want to know if they want to be within walking distance of Bridge Park or downtown Westerville or Clintonville. Those are the kind of things that they've already done a lot of this research for themselves. But you're able to save your menus up here. And then if I can figure out how to close this out. Go to quick search. I plug in everything they're looking for. And now with the market being the way it is, I make sure my coming soon is also saved and the active. I'll do anything else for a buyer except those two, because they don't need to know about pendings and close and all that. That's a whole nother, that's when you do it for your sellers. Subtype, you can search by condos, single families. The one thing, when you are looking in a lower end price point, like below 200 or 250 for a single family home, make sure you check the one that is single family attached as well, because you may be missing a perfect house in Worthington that is below 250 that is attached to another one.
Mm. That's a
And you
good
will
tip.
miss it. Unless the buyer's agent or the selling agent didn't put it in the right way. Subdivisions, I'd be real careful about this one when you're searching by subdivision. There are some agents who don't always put the subdivision in, but if I know that my buyers say they only want to live in Clariton Greens in Gahanna, then I can put that in there, but I also like to map it separately afterwards. So I hit that search and I get that, and then there's a way you can create a polygon around that particular area so that you can actually save it that way. So we'll just use an easy one that I know of. Hampstead, you got to put in the school district just to make sure that I can get that. And these people can spend whatever. And if you tab, you can add more school districts. You will begin to know what school district they're in or want. So you'll start to know what these school districts are, and you can hit multiple school districts. So I could add Westerville here if I wanted to, okay? You can also search by county, and so if somebody only wants to live in Knox County because they don't wear masks up there, then you can do that.
I'm from Knox County originally.
She's got two.
And you got two masks on. Anyways, all right. So you can also search by price, bedrooms. There's other things down here that you need to be aware of that you can find. So like if somebody calls me and says, hey, I'm looking for a house. I know that Mick Gordon has it listed. I can go in here and type list. Maybe I can type list.
You're buffering.
Oh, well. Okay, anyways, but you get what I mean. There's all sorts of ways you can search different features in this too. And if somebody says they only want a pool, you can add that into the exterior features. HOAs, basements, etc. Then what you do is, I like to see the list. There'll be nothing active because everything's in contract, so that's not going to work. And nothing's coming soon. So if I want to save this, I save search, or I could save it and put it on the web or the quick template. I like to save it and then I'll name it Hampstead or Bob and Susie's new house, whatever that is. And then I'll hit save. Sorry, guys, this is really hard to do from here. And I can add it to an existing contact or a new person. So I can add that here. And then you go down here and maybe move this up. Save, gosh darn it, come on. Save and add subscription. So it used to be people didn't want to see from you for every day. But if you're looking for a house, you want to make sure this ASAP is checked instead of sending it like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. You turn that on and then you hit save. And there's a template that you can add to all this. And then you hit save. And automatically they will get any new listings or any coming soon listings that come on the market. But I do that with them while I'm sitting in the office going over this. Okay, set them up on the search, and then we talk about paperwork. And I don't have them fill out a ton of the paperwork except the important stuff. You have with you the anti-fraud disclosure statement. This is an easy one to get signed automatically. So always, I like to go always for the easy ones, because once they start signing, then you go in for the kill. And do you guys have any questions on this form? I'm sure you've been over it a few times. What I say on this one is this is real, and people have lost thousands of dollars. You will never get an email from me giving you routing instructions, wiring instructions, any of that. It only comes from the title company. And that's why relationships with title companies and talking to them, especially as a buyer's agent, communicate with that title company as soon as possible. Because they're going to make sure that your buyers, they have the correct information for your buyers, and that they have the correct phone number so they can communicate. Because you want to be out of that. I don't know how you guys handle, but I'll play.
Yeah.
So the other form is the consumer guide to agency relationship. Do you want mine? Or do you have one?
I don't have one. I can't find those in my paper though. If you want mine, if I looked at it. Thank you.
Okay, so the next one is the consumer guide to agency relationship that I get them to sign. And this one you are supposed to present to them when you first meet them. So if you are at the door with a Zillow buyer and you go into the kitchen and they walk through the house and you say, listen, I got to get this signed because by Ohio law, it tells me to tell you who's actually representing you. And agency disclosure, there's 3 different ways to represent a client. You can be the seller's agent, which is usually the listing person, that's their agent. A buyer's agent is if you're the buyer's agent and they agree to work with you as a buyer's agent. Even if they don't agree to work with you yet, because you're not married yet, you're just dating. You can have them sign this, and you should have them sign this form saying, you know, I've gone over this information with you, and when we're ready to get married, I will have you sign some more forms. So this form, so even if they come in and I'm sitting with them on a consultation basis, they don't want to sign the exclusive agreement to work with me, then this at least is in my folder and I talk to them about it. The other form of agency is dual agency, and dual agency would be if I had a listing and I brought a buyer that I'm working with to that house. I can't tell that buyer what price to offer, and I can't tell that seller what price to accept. All I can do is bring the 2 together. And we're not attorneys. We don't want to fight. We want to bring the transaction together. And it used to be, a long time ago, you could do dual agency because it was a lot, you didn't have this craziness with these buyers. And it's really, I don't think I've seen anybody. Have you done a dual agency at all this year?
1-2 years ago.
Yeah,
I went last
yeah. When the market's slow and, or you have a pocket listing and you've got a buyer, you can do dual agency on both, as long as both know that that's being done and everything is disclosed. The rest of this stuff talks about who gets paid. And I, you know, we're co-oping with other brokers. You gotta make sure you comply with fair housing. That's the other thing. When you're talking about school districts, you can't tell a buyer what a good school district is. You can only guide them to the different sites as to, you know, looking up the ratings and things like that. You can't say, hey, oh, I heard New Albany schools were the greatest in town or Olentangy. You can say, you know, the top rated schools are these, you know, but schools are what you make of it anyways. So that's consumer guide. Always get this signed at the first moment of meeting with them. But now we've got them going on these paperwork. So the next paper, I go over them with them, and I don't, unless we're in a full consultation, I will go over the purchase contract with them, and I know that you're gonna have that class at some point, so I'm not gonna, you know, waste everybody's time on that. But the purchase contract is something I definitely go over with them because I want them to know what the process is. But if I can get this exclusive right to sell signed or right to work with them, I will, because I'm gonna get married to them for the next 6 months, year, whatever it is. And so on these documents, it's real simple, their name, your name, what date that agreement begins. So let's say today is the day we're signing these papers and it ends, and you can extend that out as far as you want. That's entirely up to you. If it's your aunt and you know she isn't going anywhere, just put a date of next year, whatever it is. Okay, and then your name again, brokerage fee. 3%. If they're gonna be a real pain, charge them for. No, but 3%, put 3% in there because most listing agents, they negotiate the commission as to what's gonna be paid. There are a few companies out there that do not pay full commission, and you need to look at that on your MLS sheet as to how much they're paying you. Red one. Oh God, what's her name? Joan Elfin, and Dave Barlow.
Yeah. List for 1%.
Yeah, and they typically don't pay 3% commission. So you want to make sure that you're working for your buyer at 3%. Now, full disclosure, I have done it for 2.5 and I don't go back to my buyers and ask for the extra 5% or the extra 0.5%. Do you?
No.
No. See, I just take whatever is given. Now, unless it's Joan Elfin, and then I make sure that in the contract, in the purchase contract, I include that she is paying me 3% commission of that sale price. Because otherwise you won't get paid. It's usually like $1. And showing up the $1 after working really hard for a buyer is not fun.
You might check with Lori about that, but because we're not supposed to negotiate any commission in the contract.
Keep out the contract. Which, because I had this come up actually with the Red One agent very recently. And she told me to do, like, fill it out this way. And then the remainder of whatever it is, so if it's $1, it'll be 3%, whatever the percentages that we set, minus $1. Of the buyer's closing cost shall be paid for by the seller. And then that's their part of the buyer's closing cost, and the seller pays that.
Okay. Because the way I
So that way the commission's not part of the contract. So once that becomes negotiable, like I've had sellers I've had buyers agents counter me on reducing my commission. And then you have to present it to the client and say, hey, like, this is the counter, but also you signed this document, like, so the commission's not.
That's a crappy counter offer.
Yeah, I usually put it on an addendum, not in the, I mean, I give them a good
Counter offer
purchase
is
price,
your
but then I put it on
Real
an
estate
addendum.
agent makes
Yeah,
sense.
Just see attached
It's just
additional.
something that you're putting in the contract.
This is a
This
buyer's,
is- Yeah,
this is an exclusive, but if you put that on here, that means they owe you that 3%, no matter how it comes out.
it'll be part of their closing costs.
Right. The protection period. Yeah, you definitely want to get that amount, those days filled out, because things happen and buyers move on, and buyers can call Zillow really quick and get another agent. And even after they wrote an offer on a house that they didn't win, and then they could go back and get that house later. Weird things have happened, put the protection period in. I usually do anywhere from 30 to 60 days. Is that what you guys
45.
do? Yeah, we split the difference, 45. Bill, what do you do?
60 days.
Okay. That's pretty much what that's the way I've done it. And then get them to sign it, because then they're married to you. And they're committed. And
So they're
gonna work
married
with
to you for those 45 days, is that what?
No, they're married to you for whatever that date is. That second paragraph, the agreement begins on until ends on midnight. But then you have an additional 60-day protection
I
period
see.
so that they can't go cheating on you. I mean, it's the easiest way to,
It also is super helpful if you have like a new build. Like if you have a 6-month agreement with the buyer, and then you're working on a new build that could take a year and a half. So you want to make sure you're putting the correct dates in there.
Okay.
So, technically with the new build, no, it's part of the contract with the builder. Well, like if you put like a, year-long working with them, and then a 90-day protection or whatever, and it closes on the 91st day after it expires, and it wasn't in the contract with the builder, they technically don't owe you a penny.
Wow.
Buyer's question, putting the fee in here, even though it's likely gonna be paid by the seller, do they ever say, well, I don't wanna have to come out of pocket?
yeah,
Okay.
absolutely, they do say that. And you say most of the time, 95% of the time, the seller is gonna pay my commission, or the builder is gonna pay my commission. But if question comes into a for sale by owner and they're not willing to pay that, I've worked hard for you, and this is, I'm not doing it for free.
And you'd be paying it anyway, because even if the seller is physically paying it, that's in the purchase price of the house.
Yeah. But a lot of buyers don't want to get into that much money.
Okay.
I had an objection the other day from a FISBO, and she said she would only work with me if the buyers paid my commission.
That's exactly what we were talking about with those low commission people. So that's what this form protects you from.
Okay.
So as long as the buyers understand that you're going in and you're negotiating with this for sale by owner at this price, then the buyers can cover your commission. As long, that's what this form is for.
Or no, it was for me to be her listing agent. She would only work with me and have me as her listing agent if the buyers were gonna pay my commission.
Well, then it's no longer for sale by owner.
Right.
Yeah,
Good luck with that.
Yes.
Yeah. so then there's no, I mean,
I only brought that up because I thought it was a super weird objection. I didn't really know how to respond.
well, she's just basically trying to save money on commission.
This is
Yeah.
what she's doing.
With representation.
Yeah. Which, so you would list her house, you would do all the work, and she would only pay 3%, right? Or you.
I don't know. I really don't know.
Charge her 7% and say, yeah, and then the
Are you
buyers
calling-
pay.
Are you calling for sale by owners off of like
Zillow,
the?
yeah.
Love this guy, you're working
Yeah,
so
right.
hard.
I'll say that's a pretty common objection from.
Oh, really?
That's
Yeah.
why
They say that a lot.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, if you had a client that was the buyer, they, like, and you bought it, like, let's say your client bought it for $200,000. You had a 3% commission agreement, you'd have a $6,000 commission, right?
Yeah.
And they would only accept that offer from your clients if you have the buyer, if the buyers are paying this part of your closing fee. The other thing you can do is up it to $206,000 and,
Oh, okay.
essentially wrap it into their mortgage,
Yeah,
but that's still, it's negotiated as part of the contract.
okay.
It's all a
Do
numbers
you
game.
call, like, is that something you do a lot of?
Yes and no.
Good man. I mean, that's how I got a lot of business my first year. It's tough.
Yeah.
It's really tough. but-
Yeah. Gotta have thick skin for sure.
and we cuss that a lot.
All right, so there's a couple ways to do a buyer's presentation that you guys can set up yourself. And they want me to go over this. And you can find it in your command. And they have several different ones that you can personalized to yourself. Where you can sit with somebody and have a PowerPoint, or you can have a brochure that you can give them. And you can use one of these lovely little forms that will help kind of go over things. So after I get the forms, the buyer's forms filled out, I talk to them, especially with first-time home buyers, about how the process works. And I usually start with, we find the house, that's what the search is for. Once we find the house, we're gonna make an offer. This market is probably the weirdest market you will ever see in your entire life. I don't think you get anywhere, because you've got to explain to your buyers that they may need cash to close. And if they are putting 3% down and going VA, they might be looking for a while. Or FHA, like a long one. Those are rare things to find right now. I just had an offer in last week, 27 offers on one little 239 house that went above 270. And people have cash money to purchase that difference on that appraisal. Do you guys know how to explain appraisal gap to your buyers?
Appraisal is what you
Yeah.
can get financed for.
Correct. So if somebody has 20% down, they're probably a good candidate for buying a house.
Sure.
If they have 3% down, they're not gonna buy. It's the reality of the market right now. It's such a tough market. Now, depends on where they look. If they're looking at Mount Vernon, you can get a house for 3% down or 5% down. No, I'm serious.
You're sitting on Knox County today.
No, I'm just, because I've been up there. Because I've been up selling
Yeah.
houses up there, because you can't find this stuff here in Columbus. It's just very challenging. Now, I don't know what your experience has been, but if you're,
Do you bring up like gifts from family? Right. Like if someone has
Absolutely.
to send down?
yeah, absolutely. I do ask that question. I ask if they have family friends that could gift them money to help purchase,
Yes, it's a serious
borrow it
thing.
from your
Yeah.
401k. That's where having a lender partner to be able to sit down with them and go over that as well, so that they hear it from you and they hear it from the lender, because I'm not a lender and I would rather them get that information from that lender.
So are you recommending to invite a lender to a buyer's consultation?
You can.
I think that's
You
good.
can. You can actually have a lender come in. I know that there's a couple of them upstairs, so if you're doing one during the week, having them come down, build those relationships while you're new, so you can present them with a list of, these are my preferred lenders, and this is who I like to work with. I know they get the job done. Some lenders are better than others. And I mean, that's just, it's no different than some realtors are better than others.
Does Keller Williams here have a list of lenders that they recommend, or does each agent build their own relationships?
Most agents build their own, but we have, I know that the young guy Morgan is upstairs. He's coming in. Keller Mortgage, Mark James from Rapid Mortgage, and they're quick.
I'm
There's
supposed to deal with Morgan in 20 days. It's pretty quick.
so that's good to know.
Yeah, he's good.
So, and that too goes back to the buyer's presentation. When you're sitting with them, you want to know when they need to be out and what their closing situation is. Because right now, the way the market is, sellers are staying in their house a lot longer than what they used to. They used to be out at closing or 3 days after. Sometimes sellers are staying in their house up to 60 days. Yeah,
Which
free.
is the maximum.
It's max, yeah. Yeah,
Man,
If you're getting a loan, you have to move in within 60 days, so that pretty much 60 days is the
cut out.
period, unless.
and the sellers are like, we just wanna stay for free for a little bit.
Well, the sellers don't have anywhere to go sometimes.
Right,
So they're trying to find another house as well.
yeah,
And that's where it gets tricky. And that's where communicating with that agent, that listing agent
At a time.
is your best way to win an offer. Is call them and say, hey, you know, what's it gonna take for your sellers? Do they need 7 days? And a lot of times they will put that in the MLS. It closed out of that. See if I can get that back. Closed out of it. In the MLS sheets, they will put in a section called possession, and you can see exactly what the seller requires. Check the additional documents as well when you're making an offer, just to make sure that they don't have a whole list of conditions that your buyer needs to meet in order to buy that house. So go over the financing part with them a little. I don't go real deep, but I say, this is where we need to be. What do you feel comfortable spending? Because some people can be pre-approved up to $1 million, but they don't want to go over 500.
right.
So you need to know that going in before you start sending them houses for $1 million. That's a nice commission.
How do you go about finding out their actual budget?
Ask them.
What do you
Ask
wanna
them.
spend a month?
Yeah.
Can you or want to?
Mhm. Yeah, I always ask. And a lot of times, if you have good communication with your lender, they'll say, oh yeah, he's good.
Yeah.
Or, you know, can he go up to 360? Oh yeah, he's good,
Yeah.
which means he's good means he can go over if he needs to.
Yeah.
You gotta learn lingo speak,
Yeah, right.
lender lingo.
I mean, we were definitely approved for more than we could afford, like,
Well, then the more you wanted to afford.
right,
It's
yeah,
not about that. It's, you're going, you know, that you have to wake up every day knowing you can pay your mortgage payment.
right,
You don't have to go to Disney World, but you also don't want to be, you know, house poor and not go to Disney World. So, because you got babies coming.
I wanna go to Disney World.
Anyway, so after we go over the financing piece, and I kind of glean a little bit more from them, I want to know their time frame, because if they have to be out of their apartment in 30 days, I want to help them get a month to month or set their expectations on what the timeline is for the marketplace. Then we go over inspections. Inspections range anywhere from $350 up, depending on the size of the house. There's several different inspections that you recommend. General home inspection is one for sure. Radon is another one. And everybody has different beliefs about radon gas. Do y'all know what radon gas is? Anybody? Okay. Some people believe in it, some people don't. But if you're gonna sell that house in 5 to 7 years and you've got it, you're probably gonna want to have the seller somehow cover that system. Not so much in this marketplace, but back in the day, you used to ask for it and the seller would cover it. The other one is termite. Termite is an inspection that especially VA and FHA want to know through the loan process. Is you might as well have it, and VA pay you, the seller has to pay for that inspection, for that pest inspection. It usually runs anywhere from $60 to $90, depending on where you are. And I don't know why they make them pay it, but they're supposed to pay it. And if it doesn't come from the seller, it's probably coming out of your pocket. So it's best to ask for it and make sure it's covered. The other inspection, especially out in rural areas, well, and septic.
Like in Knox County.
Yeah. Just make sure. Yeah, and sometimes what'll happen is you will end up needing a structural engineer. So let's say you go in and you've got these crooked cracks in the basement you're gonna need a structural engineer to go out and look at that. So make sure that if you see something like that in a basement, that you might want to keep in mind that maybe you should recommend that to them. There's also a mold inspection. I've never done a lead inspection. Have you?
I did one in all these years. It was my cousin.
Okay,
Because they had babies and they just weren't sure if the babies would eat the paint. So they had,
yeah.
More expensive though, isn't it?
yeah,
Yeah.
it's pricey, but
Most
Or it's like
inspectors,
self-test
yeah,
things.
I'll say most inspectors I've talked to that got requested to do one, they'll just go to Lowe's and pick up the like $20 lead test or lead-based paint test.
Right.
But they usually say like, as long as it's not flaking, like it's fine.
Right.
Don't need to-
That's from 78, so I assume the house has been painted since then.
Well, hopefully.
Yeah, correct.
If not, you're painting it, scraping it and painting it before you
Yeah.
close it. So that, and then obviously we talked about the clue report and making sure that that's done during that inspection period. But those are the inspections that you usually go over. If they're looking in the city, 90% chance they're not getting a well and septic, they don't need it. The other thing that you may want to check into is pool inspections and make sure that they, you know, depending on what time of season it is, if they have an irrigation system, you can ask if that's been maintained. With well and septic, you always want to ask when the last time the septic system was pumped. Yes,
Are these inspections done by like the city of Columbus or are there private companies? that do
Private-
these inspections?
private licensed inspectors, and they
Okay.
have to be licensed if you want to request any repairs. It
Okay.
can't be Uncle Joe. It can't, you know, you've got to, and that's another list that you want to get, is have some inspectors, and I would talk to the agents in the office. I use Home Team. I know everybody's not a fan of Home Team, as John's phone is that, and you probably have yours. I'm sure, Bill, you've got yours. I'm sure you've got yours. So talk to the agents around here. I'm sure you just had an experience with one.
Ed and I, the home inspection guy.
Oh.
No.
He's the best.
That's awesome.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Okay, that's kind of cool,
Good.
kind of catchy.
That's amazing.
Good catchy term. Anyways, so those are the things that you want to have in your pocket when you get somebody in contract. Yes,
Do
John?
you attend your buyer's inspections?
No,
Okay, why?
I do not go because it puts me in a liable situation. Now, if I'm going to pick up an earnest money check, I'm there. But if I do not do them. I don't go because it's not my responsibility to. It's above my pay grade, is what I say. I just don't go.
It's not your expertise. so
Right.
You're not offering anything.
Right. And I know a lot of people go. Some agents do go and spend the time. I just was always told it was a liable situation. If something went wrong, then I would be called up on the witness stand and have to say something that, oh yeah, I saw that crack. That's me personally. Do you go?
I go the last half hour, and the reason I do that is because I like to be real familiar with what I'm writing. You know, when I'm asking for remedies, of course, now, you're not asking for as many remedies right now, or any. But no, I like to know what's going on. So that's why I go.
Yeah, well, I can call my inspector and say, hey, give me more information on this. What do you think?
Yeah,
And that's just, I,
Sometimes when you're there at the inspection, the buyers are gonna ask you, what do you think about this, or what do you think should be done? Well, that's not your.
I'm only a realtor.
Yeah.
Right.
I just don't, do you go to your?
I go to the last half hour,
Okay,
just to get the recap. And then my inspector also asks the buyers to show up at the end and not be there the whole time.
oh,
too.
okay,
So
right. They don't want them to slow
that's
down.
been a COVID change, though,
okay.
which I kind of like.
Because I usually tell my buyers to be there, especially first time
Right,
home
yeah.
buyers.
Well, like, yeah, do a half hour while they're wrapping up.
Right.
Do your measurements, walk around, see things you want.
Yeah.
Do you need to be in there for 3 hours? No.
No, they usually aren't. They
Well,
usually show up,
two.
yeah.
Listen,
No, I mean, they show up like the last, my buyers typically
Okay.
tell them to do
Yeah.
that. And what I do is I have a template. So once we go into contract, I have a template that I send out with all the inspectors' names on it that I recommend. And that they can, call at their leisure, set it up through their schedule. And then I'll have the information on, here's what you need to do. Please show up here, make sure you pay. You will not get the report until it's paid for, et cetera. And then, if they need help from there, then I say, hey, reach out, I'll help you from there. And if they need me to schedule, I'll schedule it for them. They just have to give me the times.
So the buyers schedule the inspections, we don't.
I don't do, I mean, I have, if my buyer's busy during the day and I know that they need an inspection in 4 days to comply with the, offer, I will definitely call and set it up for them. As long as they tell me which one they want to use.
One thing that helped me out as a new agent is like really quickly I learned that like, especially first time buyers want to go back to the house time and time and time again. So I always make it super clear, like, this is the last time you're gonna be in the house. If you want to be there for the whole entire inspection while the inspector's doing their thing, like this is your time to do it. That way you're saving yourself some time. But then I usually go to the same thing, the last 30 minutes of the inspection.
So again, I just bought a house like a couple days ago and I loved being a licensed real estate agent because I could just keep going over there. And even then, I still felt like it's such a big purchase and you're hardly there at all,
So the
so.
seller doesn't have any obligation to give you access except for that inspection.
Right.
And then the final walkthrough.
So, I mean, I would encourage like, you guys are encouraging like taking measurements.
Right.
And stuff like that at that time as well.
there's no, we just go measure for curtains, no, that your chances of the inspection. And that's it.
I'm your worst nightmare. I would like go over every day.
Well, so back in the old days, you could set up second showings and that's when you could bring a contractor through and you can bring contractors through the inspection as well. So let's say you want to have carpets measured, set it up during your inspection time. Inspectors don't mind. It was a little different, where sellers were a little more desperate to sell their houses. Now they don't want you in there, and especially with COVID. They just, you get a chance at the inspection and then you get a chance at the walkthrough. And that's it. Unless they vacated and, that's your schedule. So then after we go over, yeah,
Just my preference for who I recommend as inspectors is somebody that can do the general inspection, radon and termite,
mhm.
all one-stop shop. Some people have different companies, but just having one phone call will make instead of 3 can be simplifying for people. Okay.
So during the inspection period, when I'm talking to them about this, I say there are certain things we can ask for and there are certain things we can't. Safety, leaky pipes, things like that, back when you could ask for repairs. Those are the kind of things that you want to ask for. You can't ask for an outlet cover or to have the curtains removed and, patched and patch the walls. We used to be able, I've gotten away with a lot. Especially if they have 8,000 pictures up on the wall of their family. That's one thing, but asking somebody to patch a hole in a drywall when they clearly saw it when they purchased the house, that's all cosmetic and you can't really ask for that. Okay. FHA and VA are totally different animals. They will have their own appraiser go out and look at the property. And if there is missing stairwell railing, if there's peeling paint on the outside, you need to make sure that that is complete before they will go back out and reappraise it. And so that's why a lot of sellers now are looking at whether it's conventional, cash, FHA, or VA. Because they don't want to deal with a bunch of extra work.
That stinks.
It does.
Yeah.
It's just not, there's no place for a low-income homeowner right now.
Yeah, well, and you know, what's really interesting is if, sometimes you get a VA through just simply because somebody else was in military.
Or you can get a student VA.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
If you have cash, then you could look it up.
No, so if you're a VA buyer, and the sellers currently have a VA mortgage. you can assume. So that's not gonna be important right now, but in a year when rates are higher,
Right. It is gonna be higher.
if you're in a listing situation, they have a VA loan, some big value up.
Okay.
But if the house price is higher than the loan, you just have the cash. Then
Yeah, to make up the difference, yeah. But if you can get like half of the value, like at a 3% rate,
Oh,
the
yeah,
other
that's
half,
a
you
difference.
know.
So after the inspection period, and we collect the earnest money, you guys all know how to collect earnest money and where that comes into play. I try to get earnest money from every buyer. It's not always, I shouldn't say that, this market's so different. Now it's like you gotta give $10,000 earnest money, because the bigger the earnest money, the more chance that seller is gonna look at your offer and say, yeah, I'll accept that. You can take earnest money the day that you write the contract. You can take earnest money 3 days after you go into contract, after acceptance, and you can take it after the inspections are done. Just depends on the buyer, their comfort level. If you've already, written 6 offers and you want to go in there with a really strong one, you can get it right up front when they write the offer. But most people are signing it electronically now, so 3 days is really probably the best to get an offer accepted.
And that goes to the title company, correct?
You pick it up. Yeah, well, you can have it wired now to the title company directly. But that's something that you've got to work out with the title company. I think we take wires too now, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
They just set that up.
If that's my one.
yeah.
Right.
And then you just have them drop it off. There's an outside mailbox here too.
Okay.
And it goes to Keller Williams Capital Partners. It doesn't go to you.
I think that's fantastic.
Stroke me 10,000.
Yeah, this is.
So you bring that check in, you make sure it's here, and then take it to the front desk and you fill out the little form, and then it goes into the office trust account. It's a non-interest bearing trust account. So there's no interest whatsoever. So they can't come back and ask for it. I mean, you go back and ask for it when you're getting ready to close.
Okay.
That's all part of the whole process. But anyways, so we talk about earnest money. We want to make sure that that's really strong, especially in this market. And you definitely want, there are some buyers who are not going to give you earnest money because they just don't have that kind of cash lying around. They're really not in the market. But I've seen it as low as 500. As long as the buyer's got skin in the game, they're not going to walk away from the contract and lose that earnest money.
So we should try and get the earnest money deposit as quickly as possible. Okay.
I would. Now, if the house is kind of shaky and you went in with 27 offers and you don't know that, you can start to see, when you see enough houses, you'll see which houses are well cared for and which houses you're kind of questioning whether you are making the right decision for your buyer. If there's like watermarks in the basement, and you want to definitely have an inspection. But that's the kind of thing where I'd say, yeah, I'll give it to you 3 days after the inspections. You don't want to tie up their money if they're going to walk away at the inspections. Okay. So then the next part we talk about is the appraisal. The bank will order the appraisal. I don't know about you guys, but I recommend that the appraisal be done after inspections are cleared and after they've gone through it. Now, if it's a clean house, it's one thing, they can probably order the appraisal right away. But with the market being the way it is and houses falling out of contract a lot at inspections, they have to pay for that appraisal, and that's usually $560 in order for the lender to send somebody out. Is that what you paid for yours? Was about $560? No?
No, ours was $425.
So,
What?
Where?
Westerville. At 9,
Is it
the
a
home
condo or a house?
it's a house. Brent? First Federal.
so
They're all Eric Ransom's guys.
you will, the buyers do have to come up with the money to pay for that as part of. And I don't think they collect it. Do they collect it? They collect it right away.
Every lender's different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
hit or miss.
I've seen
It
them.
could be on the settlement statement, it could be,
Just depends.
that's something I usually bring up is you're gonna have a couple out of
Yeah.
pocket
Pocket.
expenses before closing. Your inspections, your appraisal, and then if there's a risk money or not. It's just like something to say.
Yeah.
On hand, but in an
Yeah.
account ready to go,
As part of your closing.
buyer consultation.
We do talk a little bit about having cash for closing. Because you gotta show up for your prepaids and your escrows and your down payment. So that's all included in that conversation. The next thing I say usually is, okay, so after the appraisal, it's gonna feel like a long time before we are, chatting. So if you have any questions, just let me know, but, we'll start to begin the process. You will get your title search usually 15 days before closing, and that title search is important because what you don't want to do is find out that there's a bunch of liens attached to the house. And just because I've been in Knox County.
Wait, I'm feeling really.
No, but,
here, you
yeah.
know?
Knox County, with bigger properties and land, there are a lot of times there's oil and gas leases on those properties. So you have to make sure that that comes back on that title search to protect your buyer. So that you will see that. Now, I am not an attorney and I tell the buyers that I don't really understand all the title pieces. And if they really are uncomfortable, if something's a red flag, you want to make sure that, you have them contact an attorney to kind of go over that. And they can always call the title company as well to talk about that. After the title work is done and that's presented to them, then we get ready for closing. The next process that will happen that's really important is once the lender sends you, and they will email them a form that they need to sign that says, these are your closing documents, you need to review this is what you're going to be paying, and they have to sign it. And then they have to wait 3 days, which you had to do. You had to wait 3 days before they could give you the clear to close. So sometimes buyers don't always pay attention to that if they're really busy. So you make sure that you kind of keep in touch with the lender at this point and follow up with him once that title work is done. Then it's your job to follow up with that lender and the title company in between there to make sure that they're all meeting their timelines as well. And just check with your buyer. One thing you want to remind them not to do is buy furniture or a car or change jobs into a different field because they will not be approved for their loan.
Wait till after close.
Just wait until you close. And then they can go out and buy, they can go to Ashley Home Furniture to their little heart's content. But seriously, they've walked away.
They giggle, but it happens.
It happens.
And how do they forget? They,
They have their credit score 780, and so they run right out and start buying.
Mhm. Yeah, it happens a lot. So forewarn them not to spend any money until after they close.
How many of your buyers typically have an attorney involved? Or what percent?
In Ohio, I think I've had maybe 2.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, and the only reason is Ohio has, their contracts are so tight here that the board has attorneys write those contracts and then they have attorneys review those contracts and if they feel comfortable having an attorney, then by all means, let him pay for an attorney. That takes you out of any kind of liability in terms of something that's missed in the contract. Now, I've had an attorney rewrite the Columbus Board form once before.
Just to run up his fees.
Uh-huh. And that didn't go over real well with the agent, the listing agent. They just said no. We didn't get the contract.
There's an attorney approval clause in our contract,
Right.
right? Okay.
Yeah, so, I mean, you can have an attorney look at it, and usually, if you feel that they are that type of person, put it in there, put 3-4 days, put 5 days. I mean, you used to be able to get away with that stuff, you can't do that now. I haven't seen one in a year where somebody has written that in there.
Right, because it's another contingency, and they're gonna keep as many out.
Right.
I put one in for a client a couple of days ago, and the listing agent called me and said, can you explain what the attorney approval clause is? I was like,
How long you been working?
25 years probably.
Yeah.
In Chicago, you have to have an attorney to close.
Right.
Some states you do, I think Cleveland you do. It's just kind of their board.
That's
rules.
another fee for the client, though. It's tough world out there.
Yeah, well, that's the cost of buying a house.
But
Columbus is the best market.
closing here, the closers are not necessarily attorneys.
No, the closers are not attorneys, but they do have attorney on staff. So
Yeah.
if you have a question
For the-
and you know your title company as a listing agent, feel free to reach out to them. And there are a lot of real estate attorneys here. It's always good to have a couple in your back pocket, so in case a client does need one.
Okay.
Larry Press and, Bill Fergus is Jill Fergus's husband. And then, John Gleason and who did
Joe
you?
Barone.
Oh, Joe Barone. Yeah, Joe Barone. He's up at Polaris. He's good. So then after that, after we get everything signed, we schedule the walkthrough. Schedule a walkthrough at least 2 days before. Sometimes buyers have to schedule it earlier, just depending on their work schedule and whatever's going on. Make sure they get the utility information so that they can have that ready, so that when the day of possession does roll around, their utilities are switched over from their neighbor. On that, then I ask for questions and we're done.
Well, explain to them about not to turn off the utilities. The other side doesn't turn off the utilities.
Oh, on the listing side, yeah, it's always best to communicate with the listing agent on that and find out if they've, when they're planning on having those shut off. Usually it's a day of possession. I like to, if the house is vacant, I'll ask the other agent if I can take the key. And that way I have it and they don't have to bring it to the title company. You just have to swing by and get their lockbox off and their,
So I kind of have a question because I feel like well, this has been very helpful to go through the process of everything. But for a buyer's consultation, this would be an initial meeting, like there's not a house yet. We're still figuring out what they want. And so then would you also encourage them, like, how would you talk about a schedule and how much time you want to spend with them looking at houses?
well, time you
We'll see
spend
3
with them
houses,
is
you have to pick
question.
one.
So that's in those initial questions that I like to ask, because I want to know when they're available to see a house, especially in this marketplace, because what I'll say to them is, the way the market is right now, things would come on, you get a very short time period to see it. So I want to know what is your best time frame to see houses. So if you can only go between 5 and 6 o'clock, and I see a house that comes on the market, I'm going to go ahead and schedule it.
Uh-huh.
And we're gonna go see it as soon as it comes on the market, or at least attempt to. And fit it in that
Okay.
15-30 minute window. and try and get them in that house. If they can only go on weekends, I know that. So I'm gonna set it up at 8:30 or whenever I can get that slot in there. And a lot of times, if it's a hot house, you can say, hey, can you take a 30-minute lunch break? And they can typically, if they're really in the market for a house,
Yeah.
they will contact their boss and say, hey, I need to go see this house. Especially if it's on their short list of neighborhoods. So I always ask that question, just even in the beginning.
Yeah.
And I know a couple people have set up a Google form where you can have, do you have one, John, set up a Google form?
Oh, I love when someone puts one together and sends it to me.
One of those.
Yeah, like you're organized, let's get it.
Yeah, so but there's a couple people in the office who've done that. I have one sort of done, but I haven't like sent it to anybody.
About the rules.
About what's the best time to see the house, who's gonna be on the search, and that way I have some of the information before I meet with them. So that I can kind of, discuss how we're gonna see houses. It used to be where you could go out and see 15, 20 houses in a day. Now, you're lucky if you get to see one a day for your clients. It's just depending on the market, and have you shown any houses yet?
Me?
Yeah.
No.
No, Stacy? No, we were supposed to do an open house and, oh well. But you've shown your own house, so you know how it is.
I have not shown my house, but I spent 1 week just going to houses before we found this one that we bought. And there was really a wide variety of ways people have prepared their home for showing.
Yeah, well, that's a whole nother
That's
topic.
the way
That's a staging topic. That's another class. Yeah. Any questions?
Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, you did great for being thrown into it.
So-
Do you ever have, like, when having this kind of initial buyer consult, is there any like red flags that come up from them that you're like,
It's a good
maybe,
question.
like, this is not, like, especially as a newer agent,
Uh-huh.
it's really just a waste of your time. Like, do you have any red flags that come up from the buyer that, maybe you say, I don't know if we're really the best fit together? And how do you break that to the potential buyer?
Boy, if I'm sitting down with them, I've already had several conversations with them. I'm a pretty good read of people. If they're not willing to sign a buyer's agreement with me, and if they're kind of hesitant about the loan and the financing, those are kind of my little red flags. If they aren't willing to sit down or even work with you on getting back to you in a timely manner, if they take 2 days to respond, you kind of know that there's going to be some communication issues. So you want to watch that. But with you guys starting out, you're going to want to cut your teeth.
Right.
And you're gonna
Raise all.
wanna, and you're gonna, and even if you work with a buyer and 2 months from now, they say, we're just gonna postpone it. You've now got a whole inventory of houses that you've seen. You've gotten an education. There are times where I felt like I've wasted so much time with somebody and then they decide, well, we're not gonna move from Akron. And you've just spent weeks with these people. But you know what? Somebody else may say, oh gosh, I'm looking for this house. And you go, oh my God, I know the house.
Right.
Let's go. And you will have that education. And the more houses you see, the better off of an agent you'll be. So it used to be where you could go on tour, and I would recommend if the realty associations are doing tours, or if there's a house on tour, it used to be houses, go to those, because you will see houses and you could be in the perfect house for a buyer, and that buyer may not be there yet. It could, end up being a sale just because you know the inventory.
And
Yes.
you be careful because, a lot of people want you to jump as soon as they see a house, we show them this house. And, you want the commission, but the problem is that they're not necessarily committed to you. And so you have to develop this relationship, and if they just want to use you to open the door, you have to learn to be able to, if they're not willing to come in, at least talk to you and understand the process. I mean, it's okay to go and maybe show them 1 or 2 homes, but I wouldn't keep doing that until you have have them sign something,
Okay.
otherwise they're gonna use you. And gas is expensive right now.
Do you typically have them come to you for the consult in the office?
Yeah. If I can't get in the office store because I can't figure out how to use my key card, I go to Starbucks.
And this is a silly question, but I'm sure we're very guilty of not reading everything. We just sign it. We trust the people we work with. We just sign it. Do you go line by line, really specific on all of these agreements when you're having them sign these?
No.
Okay. I'm curious how that looks, like how you guys all do it.
I kind of paraphrase it.
Yeah, paraphrase.
Yeah, just-
Yeah, but you're right.
Be careful, know what you're signing, but
Okay.
you don't have to read every word.
Well,
Just
sure.
go, this is what
Well,
this
sure.
means.
Yeah, you'll get a client that'll be like, what is like
I've had
line
a couple
15 on
of
page
people
30
approach
say
me
that?
at open houses here recently
Yeah.
about
But like you
getting
you
a
should
house
know.
built
You
for
should.
them.
Right.
Uh-huh. You just
Awesome.
go over
And
there.
I just wanted to know like what
Just
that
read
process
it
kind of
word
looked
for
like.
word.
if you could
Find a
run through
friend.
that.
Sure.
Real estate and stuff.
So the way new builds work is the best thing to do is if you know that they're going new build, you pick up the phone and call and you register those buyers. And then you say, is there a way we can set up an appointment with that on-site agent? Because 50% of the time, and especially right now, builders don't want to pay you. They don't think you have any value whatsoever to this process. So you need to be, especially with Pulte and MI, you need to be at the initial meeting. Even Ryan, I think.
Yeah, I'm sure.
One of
Oh,
them,
Ryan.
$2,500 from Ryan.
yeah. Is that what it is now? Yeah.
And each builder is different,
Yeah.
and so you really should call them all out to understand what their rules are, so that you don't get screwed out of the commission.
Right. Register them. I believe we have a form in are you in Loop or DocuSign?
I'm not sure.
Okay, so you're probably Loop. DocuSign. If
That
they
sounds
say-
familiar. so-
Yeah, there's a builder registration form. Tell your buyers that you can definitely represent them in new build,
Okay.
but start finding out what the communities are. And spend time going to visit them first and
Right.
registering your buyers.
Okay.
Otherwise, yes, Barb.
Another thing you might, explain to them about for sale by owners, about being sure that you get that form signed by the seller, that he'll pay a 3% commission when you bring a buyer.
Yeah, there is a form that we have
Right. but they
in the computer that you can get a seller before. So let's say you are working with a buyer and you can't find them a house to save your soul, but one came up that's for sale by owner in the neighborhood and you saw it on Zillow because you were, calling. There's a form that you can have them sign that says they will pay you 3%. It's like an exclusive for sale by owner form.
That you have the seller sign or
That you
the,
have that for sale by owner, sign it before
Okay.
you bring those buyers in.
okay.
You don't even walk into the house without having that.
Yeah.
So I lost a deal one time to FISBO, and I was there, and the guy's like, you don't need a realtor, you can save 3% of the purchase price if you just cut them out. And my clients went for it.
Oh.
They were friends of mine, so.
Oh.
Make sure you have that signed before you even step foot.
But
And it doesn't have to
Are
be 3%.
they still friends of yours?
No, it can be more or less than that, so, I don't do 3% when I do business, because you're doing the job with 2 agents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, FISBA doesn't save any money when they work with my clients, so.
But did they pay you for the 3% of bringing the buyer?
It's negotiable, so
Did you get nothing?
You jack it up to 4?
Oh, because then, okay,
So
so
for
then,
that, for my friends who cut me out of the deal, not even.
because you weren't gonna get anything in anyway, right? That was your.
I started what I do now is I say essentially, typically I charge 6% moving forward since I'm only representing the buyers.
Yeah,
And then I get that signed before we step. foot.
yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
While I was discussing that form with the seller too, that was, but I did this one time. I said, well, the fee is 3% if you want me to bring my buyer. I said, oh, by the way, who's your title company? And who does this for you? And who does this? And they had no idea what I was talking about. I said, well, for 4%, I can take care of all those things too.
Yeah.
And they were happy to do that.
Yeah, and you want to control that.
Yeah.
If you're working with a for sale by owner, you want to make sure that you've got your title rep. Now, some of these, it could be an older agent that's selling their house and they have their, whatever, they have a,
Or their attorney.
yeah, attorneys know everything, especially when they're like civil law and, yeah.
But I do one thing when I do the buyers, when I get them to sign the documents. There's a spot there as far as the commission. Just say in most cases, the seller is paying my commission. But there is a chance periodically that the seller may only pay 2% of my commission, if my fee is 3%. And I explained to them that 1% still has to be paid, and it would have to come from them. And I say it in a nice way.
Right.
But, it's not like you're doing it for free, and as you get used to doing this, make it more comfortable. But I've been burned before, and then the same with the for sale by owner, if he won't pay me, somebody has to pay me,
Well, yeah,
particularly if I found it.
and that's, I mean, you're sitting in a perfect position if you're working with a buyer and you see a for sale by owner coming up while you're prospecting, you can definitely get them in there and take them through.
It's a good way for them to save money.
Yeah, because they're really saving 2%, and you're doing, I don't know why anybody would for sale by owner now anyways. I think that's crazy.
Yeah.
They're just hurting themselves in this market.
How
But-
so?
How so? They may reach 3 buyers. They may only reach 1 buyer, but I can reach. Because we have a whole pool
Right.
of agents that are out there selling houses. And you have one little ad on Zillow
Right.
and maybe a tiny little sign in the yard with your phone number that nobody can read
Yeah.
anyways. Because their marketing isn't that good and they're hurting themselves, especially in the seller's market.
Good example, I have a listing right now that is for sale by owner. She said that she had it for sale by owner for 5 months, had 3 parties call, tons of agents though. So I get the listing and we put it on the market and we had 27 showings in like 4 days.
Wow.
I mean, that's a perfect example, and
Yeah.
that's something you can say to, when you're.
I bought my first house for sale by owner and he had a handmade sign in the yard that I saved that said, like for sale on Zillow and his phone number, but it was in a real hot neighborhood, so he got a lot of, because he had one open house and this is, we were the first ones there and put in a contract, went into contract immediately. But, so this was 7 years ago and the market was pretty hot then, at least in our neighborhood. So it worked out for him, but if he had an agent, he probably would not have taken our offer,
Yeah, it works out for the buyers.
Exactly why they're
Yeah.
cheap selling.
Yeah, exactly, it works out for the buyers. Do you have any other questions about builders? Any other questions, guys? This has been fun, having you all here.
Thank you.
So great. Yeah, thank you, guys. Added more information. And I'm sorry, I love Knox County. I'm just saying. I just, like I've been up there and I'm thinking about joining the board.
I currently live in Elmira.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
It was funny though.
Oh, yeah, that's fun. Mount Vernon's a great little town.
No, it's not.
Hey, does anybody want Ed and I's
It's terrible.
phone number? Then you need a home inspector. He's great. He was great. I really.
Let me know
liked
if you have
him.
any questions.
Can you text
Okay,
me?
well, thank you.
Yeah, let me get your phone number. John, what's your last name?
It's cool that I can apply without a spell.
Great, I'll just get your phone number then. What's your phone number?
937 470 9553.
Okay. Ed Nye is, and he's Eric Ransom's main home inspector, I believe. Eric Ransom is one of the investors, as the brokerage. Here, so his name is Ed Nye. I don't remember, unfortunately. Excuse me one second. 740-815-5312. I don't know.
Five nine seven nine.
Yeah.
Lisa, have you ever